everyone. How's it going? I'm Andrew. I'm the co-founder and CTO at Parsley. I don't think I was one of the original people doing big data in Charlottesville, but we have been doing big data stuff for a while, probably before it was called big data. I started Parsley in 2009. And for this talk, which is going to be a very rapid walkthrough of what we're doing to move from descriptive analytics about the internet to predictive analytics that can help see where things are going next in terms of internet attention. That's what I'll focus on today. So first off, what's Parsley? Parsley is the web's attention engine. What I mean by that is that we measure internet attention. So we measure internet attention online. So just as a quick interactive thing, how many people here read the website TechCrunch.com or Bloomberg.com or WallStreetJournal.com? Right, so all the hands are going up here. So if you've read one of these sites, you've inadvertently contributed to the Parsley data set about internet attention. And that data set is actually used by the people who run those sites to basically figure out what people are paying attention to in real time. For the last few years, we've built a suite of metrics that help quantify user responses to content online. These go beyond the basic kind of clicks and conversion metrics and into things like how content is being shared in social networks like Facebook and Twitter, how many people are viewing given video and for how long they're viewing those videos, whether they're loyal visitors to the site or not, whether they have loyalty to certain content categories or not, and things of that nature. This data is now used on a day-to-day basis in the world's largest news organizations. So these are a couple of tweets by our happy customers. This is the Daily Telegraph, which is one of London's largest newsrooms. Parsley's dashboard's running in the top corner there. And then this is the Wall Street Journal newsroom on election night, where they're monitoring internet attention around election content as the actual election results are streaming in from the Electoral College in the bottom panel there. So this is the kind of customer that Parsley has, and these customers run some of the web's largest sites. We work with over 250 media companies of this kind, and we collect internet attention data for them on a massive scale. Now, why this is an interesting data science or big data problem is that people who run these sites actually produce all of the content that everyone reads every day, right? So it kind of informs your attitudes and beliefs and even sort of your intent about what you're doing on the web. And the platforms that basically themselves have the largest internet sets, companies like Google and Twitter and Facebook, they essentially rely on this publishing ecosystem to create useful content. If Facebook were only about the content on Facebook, you probably wouldn't go back very frequently. But thankfully, there's all this content off of Facebook that it acts as a gateway for. And so that's basically what we're measuring in real time, is this attention from these platforms to these sites. It's kind of massive clickstream data along with information about how long people are spending, which kinds of platforms are driving the traffic, et cetera. And basically, this global attention data set is now pretty large. It's 1 billion monthly visitors. It's 12 billion monthly content views, and it's 100 million unique pieces of content in the ecosystem. So that's basically enough data that you can start to build useful predictions on top of. One thing we did last year to kind of showcase the value of this data is we classified all the content written in political ecosystem around whether it was about Donald Trump or Hillary Clinton, as well as the other presidential candidates. And we plotted an attention timeline for Trump and Clinton and showed that internet attention peaked during real-world events like the debates and, of course, election night. But we could also show, and you can see this in the red versus blue in the center here, that the peaks for Donald Trump were much more dramatic during every real-world event than they were for Hillary Clinton, and that this effect kind of cascaded as the election went on to the point where on the final election night, there was much more attention, internet attention being paid to Donald Trump topics than to Hillary Clinton topics. So you can interpret what you want from that. So can we predict internet attention? That's kind of the core question that we're moving toward in 2017. We have this interesting data set. What can we basically say about it? And so last year, we spun up a team that's called Parsley Insights. And that team is a combination of data scientists and engineers who have actually taken all of our data and built a warehouse out of it that we can use to train models and think about where things are going next. So one of the things we did is we tried to study first, very simple description of what is the typical lifespan of an article online. Interestingly, this is about 2.6 days. You can see that 90% of an article's traffic happens within that window, and then it sort of trails off after that, which is also why the real-time aspect of this is pretty interesting. These lifespans are different depending on which platform is the primary promotion vehicle for the article. Actually, lifespans are longest for Google-driven content, which makes some sense. It's usually like research-oriented content, whereas it's shorter for these social networks. So one question that a lot of our publishers ask and that we ask about predictions online is, can we predict eventual social lift by looking at early traffic for an article, right? And we found that you actually can. So if you look at the first 500 page views of an article and you take a look at the traffic mix of that story, if the traffic is more than 2/3 social referrals, there's a higher probability, there's a 33% chance that essentially this article will become a primarily social article, which also means it'll have a longer life cycle, get more traffic, essentially go viral. And so publishers can actually use this information for day-to-day programming decisions, basically looking at which ones are winners or losers on social networks by the seed traffic they're giving the articles. Now, can internet attention predict public opinion? As I mentioned, we did this study with the Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton data, and I think what's kind of interesting about the study overall is that we actually saw that Trump and Clinton got the same level of attention per article. So in other words, if a given journalist wrote an article about one candidate or the other, it would basically be equally likely to be a high traffic article. But the publishers wrote about 2.5 times more content about Donald Trump than they did about Clinton, right? And so as a result of this dynamic, the overall internet attention for Trump was much higher. And we think that that probably had an impact on the opinion overall. In fact, if you plot this way, you can understand that even though Trump and Clinton had similar levels of engagement per article, it was a much more reliable source of engagement for Trump. You can see that by the confidence of the red plot here. So journalists basically started to become trained that Trump was a topic that people wanted to read about reliably, and so they produced more content to satisfy that mechanism. And so this is a kind of echo chamber effect happening on the web. We took another interesting prediction problem. We said, can we actually use internet data about movies and films? I guess this is kind of relevant since we're at Violet Crown, to predict a film's revenue. And so to do this, we actually took a data set of 2 movie studios, Paramount Pictures and Walt Disney. We plotted their attention timelines over time. We broke that out by traffic source, where you can see different categories of traffic that are driving to all the films about these movie studios' content. And we were able to see, peaks during the summer months and the winter months, which are popular box office release times. We were also able to take each film, which we built a little topic model around each film, and we were able to see which films got the most attention overall. And the most interesting thing about it was when we compared this to a lot of metrics that the film industry uses to predict box office winners, internet attention had the strongest correlation to traditional metrics they use. So they traditionally use things like how much print ad cost did we spend on this film, or what was the production cost of the film. But those were actually weaker than the internet attention in the days leading up to the film for predicting the box office revenue. And so this was the overall successful prediction plot there. So tools of prediction. So I guess this is where I get to do a quick plug that being here in Charlottesville, I'm the organizer of the local Python Charlottesville meetup. And we had one of our most successful sort of cross data science and Python meetups recently, where we had someone come in to talk about deep learning, which was really fun. If you're interested in Python, definitely check out, just Google Python Charlottesville. You'll come to the meetup page and you can sign up. We're kind of having pretty regular meetups there. Parsley's been using Python and contributing to the Python open source community for the past several years. And to build out this new insights team, what we actually have been doing is taking our data and all of our web content is indexed in Elasticsearch. We've been indexing all of our clickstream data in Google BigQuery, and then we're building our models on top of that, starting with scikit-learn, and then lately been moving to TensorFlow for some of the text analytics as well. And then, this is generally a nice PyData stack to work with. So what are some of the things I'm excited about in the next couple of months for doing some predictions with this data? So I basically view it as our data set has these 4 interesting aspects. We have an attention timeline for every article. We have the topics that the article is about, which I'm interested in actually applying things like the Wikidata open ontology to this in order to like group all of these by topic. We have the content genre or category. So imagine a piece of content about the film Arrival as compared to the general genre of film reviews, right? And what percentage of total film reviews on the internet were about Arrival, and further, how much attention did those get overall, right? And then finally, we have social actors and traffic, which is basically where this is being shared on networks like Twitter and Facebook, and where the exact timeline of the traffic coming from those areas. And so I feel like a variety of ML techniques can be applied to each aspect of this data. The attention timeline is classic time series modeling problem. Text topics we can use. In fact, we recently are doing a report where we use unsupervised LDA models to topic group everything and then report on that. Content genre and category could be a simple classification problem, and then social actors and traffic is probably the area I'm least familiar with, which is in more like structural virality and graph modeling. So we have some theories of where we're going next with this. One is we think that heavy mobile traffic predicts social virality, and we base this on observations we see in the data already. We think that basically when people read a story that they really care about on their phone and share it from their phone, that it's basically because it's so important that they can't wait to get to their desktop to share it, right? And so it seems to be that there's some kind of ways we could detect early sharing activity by looking at the devices. Today's rapidly growing niche topics are tomorrow's mainstream discussions. This is kind of intuitive from like trending topic discussions, but I think that you can find a lot of these sorts of niche topics and measure exactly how fast they're growing, and that could be a very useful predictive tool. Visitors rarely migrate between content categories. That's kind of related to the Merkle talk earlier, right? There's certain affinities that people have to categories of content, and they might stick to those, and that might help with predicting where they're going to be next. And then primary traffic sources will usually predict the post-life cycle. I think this is mainly proven, and at this point, we're just building a good model to do it generically. So at a high level, Parsley is a company that measures internet attention at a massive scale. And I think there's a lot that we can learn from this data, and that's what we're planning on doing in the next year. So eager to hear your questions. Thanks.